What's up, everyone? We're excited to do this next session at Green Jobs Pavilion 2025, Day 3 here at the Nest Climate Campus. I'm so excited to do this session on sustainable fashion jobs. This is our first time doing this session here at the Pavilion, but it was in high demand. And as a susty fashion girly myself, I knew that I needed to do a session on this. And I'm actually wearing a fit from Rue St. Paul, who you'll be hearing from today, in honor of today's panel, as well as it's just a cute fit, you know what I mean? And it's good for the planet. So we're gonna dive right into it. I wanted to ask each of you to introduce yourselves by in the orientation of talking about your origin story. How did each of you build your career in sustainable fashion? What was your background before this? And what skills from previous experiences proved the most valuable to allow you to thrive in this space?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate. I am a category manager for Preloved Apparel at eBay. And I've been at eBay for about 4 years, but I always say that my fashion origin story started when I was 14. I worked on the retail sales floor for several brands from age 14 to about 23. So 9 years, which got me the retail bug. And I was always interested in fashion, participating in fashion. I've gone through so many iterations of my personal style. But when I was graduating college, I didn't see a spot for myself in fashion in the traditional way. So I knew I wanted to have a mission driven career and something driven towards sustainability. And I started at a global environmental NGO. And while there, I got really lucky and was on a team that was working on several of the UN SDGs. So I worked across forests, energy, the circular economy, and several others. And while I was there, I learned about the overlap between circularity and the fashion industry. That was my aha moment. So I decided that I would pursue sustainable fashion specifically. I went to school to study business, sustainability, and fashion all at once, and then started at eBay. And I think one of my learnings from my fashion origin story all the way when I was 14 to now is I learned customer service at a very early age and connecting with people and understanding why what they wear matters so much to them and their identity, and taking that skill across all of my jobs and being able to kind of see someone's core purpose or core need when providing a service, no matter what it is, has really served me in many ways.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I run Rue St. Paul. So we are a circular boutique in Carroll Gardens in Brooklyn. We also sell all over the world online. So we basically support sustainably minded and ethically minded designers from all over the world. We also buy and sell used and vintage clothing from our community within our store. And then additionally, we also have a rental program where you can actually borrow and rent pieces from your neighborhood store. So the thought behind the store is basically to create a circular space where people have optionality in how they want to consume fashion. So you can buy new, and if you do, you're supporting sustainable brands. You can swap, you can sell your old clothes, you can pick up someone else's old clothes, and then you can borrow if you don't need something in your closet forever. So I've been doing that for about 8 years. My background, actually, unlike some of the other girls up here, is not in fashion or sustainable fashion by any means. Before this, I actually spent 10 years working for the big man, working in finance, specifically corporate strategy and mergers and acquisitions across a variety of products, anything from consumer credit cards to ovens and dishwashers to wind turbines and renewables. So, in my job in corporate, I was able to kind of basically see across a lot of different products and establish a really good discipline in, in just how to operate a business, how to step back and look at strategy. And that really kind of took me to my job now, running my own business. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs start off with a really big passion and are very artsy, but they don't quite have kind of the commercial or the business skills because that just wasn't taught in school. It's not taught in fashion school. It is now, but I mean, back when I went to college, it was not. It's not taught in art school. So kind of that business mindset has really, I feel like, been really additive to me building my brand and building my business.
Hi, I'm Marcie. I'm an assistant professor at FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology. Unlike them, I actually started in the fashion retail business. I was a buyer and a merchandiser for 15 to 20 years, depending on how you look at it. So I like to say I came from the dark side. I was working for for companies, getting people to buy product, strategizing how can we sell more, how can we kind of push more product out there, which I just didn't know at the time, kind of what I was doing and the sustainability effects. When I left the industry full time, I started teaching at FIT and I taught fashion business, which I still do. And then I started teaching sustainability. I just started getting interested in it. I had a mentor who taught me a lot about it. And that opened my eyes. And then I started to learn more. I ended up getting my master's in fashion sustainability. And that sort of brings me to where we are today. I think even though the beginning of my career was more about selling the product, pushing the product, not necessarily in a sustainable way, knowing that helps me teach how to be more sustainable now. You have to know the business and how it's broken to know how to fix it. So it's really informing how I speak to the students, how I teach them. Yes, you can be in fashion, but you don't have to do it in a destructive way. You can do it in a really smart way.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Brown. I'm a sustainable fashion and lifestyle content creator, advocate, overall creative, as most creatives like to title themselves. I've been a full time content creator for 5 years now, and I also ran a publication multimedia business called Sustainable Baddie that was around for 3 years, but unfortunately is currently on pause. But I initially went to college to go study fashion, but I very quickly learned about how destructive the fashion industry was. And I wasn't even really sure what I wanted to do in fashion, but I've always like had a passion for fashion. And I wanted to be a part of that industry, but I knew if I wanted to be a part of the fashion industry, I wanted to be a part of changing it as well. So I ended up pivoting my majors over to marketing, and then minoring in journalism and sustainability. Um, yeah, I and then after that, I just kind of like I worked for a corporation in college, Sodexo, which is like my school's cafeteria. And I learned some things through that and just like some more organizational things. But what I found a lot of passion is, or a lot of my own passion stemmed from seeing the passion that other people had in the industry as well. So I started working for different small businesses and just kind of gleaning how like adaptable they were to just like the worlds that they live in and the different things that they were navigating through. And for me, I had a fashion blog and it evolved to content creation as we know it today. And for me, it wasn't a job that I necessarily sought out, but I think just like the way that I've adapted through the times and the way things were evolving and like wanting to spread the message of sustainable fashion, of the brands who were doing good and the people who were doing really well in it as well, just like creating a platform for other people to find each other. And I do think my skills in marketing make sense for what I'm doing now, but I really think adapting to whatever situation you're in and the politics that we're in, the industries that we're in is like very key to staying afloat. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And as you can see, a lot of diversity in this room with backgrounds and passions and the ways that you've navigated this work. And so, my first question actually is for Marcie. So, I wanted to ask you, you know, I'm sure that in your profession and the students you work with, you have to talk a little bit about the different types of pathways they could be pursuing, because I'm sure fashion doesn't just look like one option. So it spans everything from resale operations to corporate sustainability to content creation. I'm curious, from what you're saying, what types of diverse skill sets and backgrounds are you seeing succeed in this industry beyond traditional fashion training to secure a job in this space?
So I spoke to someone yesterday who put it perfectly. The dream is that there's no sustainability department. It's that sustainability is just in everything. But to do that, the biggest thing, and this is what we really try to teach our students, is critical thinking and curiosity. You know, just because things have been done the way that they're being done now Doesn't mean they're right. Doesn't mean there's not a better solution. Don't be scared of that. So, there's a lot of talk about AI. AI is going to take the jobs. AI can't critical think. AI can't come up with those new solutions. It can do a spreadsheet. But that's where students or anyone trying to get into fashion sustainability is going to excel. You know, learning, talking, coming up with those new ideas. So that's a good one too. And then like you said, there are so many different avenues upstream with production, downstream with sales and end of life planning for apparel. So there
Can
are
we define what that is?
end of life planning, EPR, which is if you're any affiliation with the EU, you'll be hearing a lot about it. It's what happens to apparel and products when people are done with them, like they don't go into a landfill. So the EU and some US states are enacting end of life EPR. Is it EPR? I can't remember. Yeah, where companies have to be responsible for their product that they sell when it's the end of that product's life. So they have to take it back and then be responsible about recycling it or disposing of it. So they need to think about that whole process before they even produce an item. So that'll be really interesting. But that goes back to eBay and rental. Everything. So what happens to those products when we're done with them? It's a whole nother career.
Yeah, 100%. I think something that my friends in the fashion industry and sustainable fashion have told me is that, it's even really valuable to have a scientific background. It's not really just about design and creativity. Sure, that's like one part of it, but even larger than that, when it comes to regulation and supply chains, you need to have a scientific background. So if you have a STEM background, if you're able to do that type of, critical research, data analysis, so many companies need that to be able to make sure that they're on track with their emissions records, with where their their procurement processes, like where they're getting their materials from. All of those things require scientific knowledge as much as soft skills, design skills, art skills, and things like that. So just wanted to add it on to that. And so for Kate and Kelly, I was curious, like, what specific roles are you currently hiring for right now in sustainable fashion? And what skills or experience do you prioritize when you're evaluating candidates to join your teams?
I'm not hiring right now, unfortunately, but we are always looking for interns. But kind of piggybacking on what your prior question, Kristy, it's sustainable fashion is such a broad industry. Like no one really knows how to define it in this room. As an industry, there's so many things across the entire value chain that you can plug yourself into. I have people that send me resumes all the time that just say, I'm really interested and passionate about sustainable fashion. Okay, great. Then I ask, what is your skill set? Like everyone is trying to be super broad and just say, I love to thrift, I love sustainable fashion, but you need a skill set. You need to be an expert in its function, whether it's corporate responsibility, whether it's design or it's content creation or it's sales, it's retail, it's operations. Build your skill set there first and then layer on sustainability because I can teach you about sustainability. It's easier to do that than me to teach you how to design, the technical aspects. So to kind of take a step back, I would say I'm always looking for people that are really hungry, that are really curious, that are able to think outside of the box and not just do if I tell you to do ABC, you're doing ABC, EFG, and thinking always one step ahead and trying to connect the dots of what the business is trying to achieve, of what the customer wants. That in any industry, whether sustainable fashion, will be what sets you apart from the next person. And then, if I can lastly say, for the younger folks in the audience who are trying to get yourself in the door and are having trouble finding opportunities because it is a tough market out there right now. It's a tough market for people with 3 college degrees. It is really tough for people that are just coming out of college. Um, I know no one likes to work for free. Like, I get that our time is all valuable, but try to find opportunities to learn. And instead of thinking, oh, I'm working for free, well, you're learning for free. Obviously, everyone has to make a living, but whatever opportunities that you can get to, that you can learn, that is aligned to what you want to build in the future, just grab onto it because there are 10 other people that are trying to do the same thing and you just got to be one step ahead.
I think for context, as a category manager for Preloved Apparel at eBay, my job is to build and drive the business for used apparel on site. That's a really broad array of responsibilities. But I think it's interesting that sustainability isn't a core part of my job. I came into eBay knowing that buying used is more sustainable than buying new. So, how can I bring my expertise to eBay, to this category, to this vertical, and make buying resale convenient, exciting, all of these things so that a customer is driven to that option more than they're driven to buying something. In my experience, and this isn't the only path forward, but in my experience, sustainability, when you're contributing to a P&L, when it's about being part of the core business, is about operational efficiency and change management. And so that again is a wide array of skills. And what my suggestions would be are to become an expert in something. Honestly, it doesn't really matter what that thing is. Follow your passion, follow your interests. And if sustainable fashion is your interest, then figure out how you can layer sustainability and the fashion industry into that area of expertise. I think like go where you see a solution needed, go where you think there's blank space, go where you think you can provide value, and always be the person asking in the room, is this sustainable? Is there a better way? How does the fashion industry operate and how can I make that better? I was an English and French major in college. And so it's a little bit interesting that I ended up where I am. But what my skill was storytelling, and I loved telling stories. Now I use data to tell stories. Now I use like financial performance to tell stories, but it's something that I am good at and passionate about. And my big break in my career and what got me, from an NGO into the private sector was to your point about, kind of pursuing roles that may not have an immediate reward, but help you along the way. I wrote an article for a sustainable fashion blog that positioned me as an expert in that space. And then I leveraged that thing that I was good at, which was writing and telling stories, to transition my career into something where I could learn more and then become an expert in those things and then take it to a company where now I'm part of growing sustainability at eBay and our position in the sustainable fashion world. So it's a broad set of recommendations, but I think it's more about like you finding your niche and then bringing that to an industry that you're passionate about.
I absolutely love that advice. And, building on top of that, Jasmine, you've been able to build your own job and build your own career. And I think a big skill that you bring to that work is through personal branding and the ways in which you're able to talk about yourself and your work as a way to get more work. And so I wanted to have you talk a little bit more about that on how you got comfortable being able to talk about your sustainable fashion journey, building a blog, building Sustainable Baddie, and what you'd recommend to people just starting out who maybe want to, build their own personal brand around sustainable fashion and the ways in which they could tell that story too.
Yeah, I think for me, so it started with a fashion blog that I had at the time, but I really pivoted towards sustainability because I felt like there was a huge gap in communication. In the fashion, not just the fashion community, but even within the sustainability community, because it was very much one type of person, one type of style, and one type of narrative that was being discussed. And for me, I know that when I first got interested in sustainability and sustainable fashion, I really would have loved Little Jazz to have someone like me to be able to find resources from, to be able to dissect the different information and like things that she was like coming across. So I just started yapping online and just like kind of like leaning into who I am as a person. And I think that one of the really amazing strong suits of sustainability is that it forces you to slow down and be intentional about whatever it is that you're doing. And I think for me, it's helped me specifically with fashion, be able to find my own personal style, be able to find my own voice. And I just brought people along for the ride of like what I was learning and what I was doing, which ended up being what it is now. But the reason why I started Sustainable Baddie specifically was that I know that I'm just like one person with one voice, with one perspective and my own set of skills. But I know that there's so many people who are doing such amazing work in so many different industries whose stories weren't being told. So I created a platform for that. But I think through that, I was able to see other people who are also being able to like, I think content creation, honestly, in this day and age, everybody kind of has to do it, even though it's my full-time job. I use my job to kind of uplift other people who are in the community, but I do think it is really important for you to be able to speak up and show up because you don't know who else out there really needs to hear your voice, who will be inspired by you, who's also learning alongside you as well. And I found for myself too, it's not just me who's growing and figuring out things. I'm also growing alongside other people who are teaching me even more throughout the sustainability community. And yeah, I just like feel like it's a huge thing where I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't stop learning. Whether that's, different scientific reports that come out or just like learning from other people and their stories as well and being able to build community around that. I think every industry is very dependent on others and very dependent on community, but I do think in this industry that is very difficult. We're going up so many so many battles all up at once. And yeah, being able to like learn from others and then be able to like dissect that for yourself and like figure out who you are. I think there's like a dichotomy in that. That's really important.
That's great advice. I think it is about being able to find your own voice, especially in a world that needs more creativity. And I think why I love this concept of a sustainable fashion career is that it's really focused on innovation. It's really focused on cross-sector collaboration and being able to come up with new things. And I think it's such an emergent field and industry. And I think that's why I love it and why I love this panel in particular. And my final rapid fire question before we open it up to one or two questions, maybe only one. We don't have that much time. Is, even given the battles that you're talking about with sustainable fashion, like, why do you still feel that this is an industry people should still pursue and fight for? That's the first part of that. And second part is, do you have like a resource or a video or a book that you'd recommend to plug to people? So half and half. Why should people want to still be in this industry? And what's a resource you can plug to get them started?
Why is it worth still pursuing? Well, no one's going to stop buying clothes, as far as I know, right? So we still have to wear clothes in society. It is a business. And so I tell this to my class, sustainability is not just environmentalism. There is a big human factor there. And this industry employs millions of people around the world. So we can't stop shopping. It's worth it for us to be in it and to be trying to make these changes because if the business is going to keep going, it has to keep going smarter. So that's the first answer. The second one, I have so many books. And I always forget the name of the first one, Unraveled by Maxine Bada. Is that what it, Unraveled? Yes, where she goes through the supply chain. And she's a very important person to know in sustainable fashion. Goes through the supply chain of jeans, a pair of denim jeans. The other one is Fashionopolis by Dana Thomas. Yeah. Sorry, did I take yours? Okay, I won't say anything more about it.
I have mine now. I'm like, there's so many resources out there. My mind just went blank. Yeah, I think fighting for it. I just think it's the thing where I always encourage people, no matter what it is you're passionate about, go into that and like apply sustainability in that because I'm like, there's no way that you as a person by yourself are able to like solve all the world's problems. But if you're willing, like, I feel like you're only willing to fight for something you really believe in and you really love. And if fashion is that thing for you, and you already know how disastrous it is for the planet and people, I highly encourage you to just weasel your way however you can to to just like heal it. Because I also want to throw in the way the fashion industry is now is so new in human history. Fast fashion as it is now only started back in the 1950s. And even the way that it is to this day is only in the past like couple decades. So I definitely have a lot of hope and optimism that it can change, even though it's quickly developing. Answer one. And then I think for resources, if you're able to make it to this conference or be able to find the resources that they have online, Sustainable Fashion Forum is really good for more of like the industrial side of sustainable fashion. And I mean, more just like industry, like networking like this. Remake, if you want to be able to actually like do things in person and find community in person or throughout the nation, they're a really great organization to get connected to. Also, I think if you're trying to get connected culturally, Teen Vogue actually has like switched their stance on fashion to be more of a sustainable route. So Alyssa Hardy is the person who's ahead of that, and she's an amazing resource in herself. So yeah, I would keep your eye even on Teen Vogue and support them because I think it's really amazing what they're doing within Condé Nast and within the fashion industry and the fashion publication world. And
Like Marcie said, the problem isn't going away, but the bigger the problem, the bigger impact could be. So there is just so much runway for change and impact in this industry. It's an uphill, really, really uphill battle, but hopefully that gives like us motivation to just keep pushing. And like I said, I think we all just want to see a world in which fashion is just, we don't call it sustainable fashion anymore. It's just sustainable. And that's just it is. And we don't have to keep doing this anymore. And we can just, can do everyday things. But as far as resource, I think a lot of the things have been mentioned. And I think one thing going back to jobs and opportunities, just don't be afraid to knock on doors. There's so many small brands that's trying to build a sustainable line, sustainable beauty, sustain whatever it is, and they need so much help that they can't afford because of everything that's going on in the economy. If you knock on those doors, you can learn so much, you see how you can help, and that will it's all stepping stones. One thing will lead to another, and you'll be surprised, I think, what door that could potentially open up.
I'll try to keep it brief so we have time. But I think a lot has been said. Another reason that there's still hope for this industry is fashion, whether it's sustainable or not, is such an emotional industry. It is so much about identity and feeling good in your body, feeling good in how you present to everybody else. And so I think that's part of the reason that sustainable fashion versus other, sustainable movements and other industries is so popular right now, because it's about more than just making an industry perform at its best. It's truly about each individual that's participating in it. And so making that a more positive and like generally net positive experience for the world, it feels really rewarding. And then in terms of information, I'll plug Rue St. Paul, but I found so much information through small brands and like following them on social media. Because fashion is so emotional, people are sharing their stories, brands are sharing their stories, and you learn so much just from like finding brands that you love and seeing what they recommend and where they come from. So honestly, that's my like number one, is just find people that you admire and follow them. Two very specific ones: anything by Dana Thomas, as was already mentioned, and then the Untangling Circularity podcast by Cynthia Powers, I believe, is helpful. So.
Wow, look at that resource share. You all are brilliant. Well, yeah, my last concluding thought on this is that the fashion industry is one of the largest polluting industries on this planet. There's definitely a lot of work to be done, and you definitely can find your role in it. And I would say also going to a conference and being able to invest in, some sustainable fashion designers and brands and wearing their clothing when you're going to an event. Even an event like this, like me wearing this outfit from Rue St. Paul is like sending a message that like, I'm hosting this event about green jobs and I'm like wearing my values, right? And so that's also a part of it. It's part of us not only creating these industries, but also shifting culture. And I think that's exactly why this industry, in my opinion, is so exciting, because it's a space where you can express yourself. And I think that's exactly where climate solutions can find fertile ground to grow. So thank you so much to our amazing panelists. We don't have time for a formal Q&A, but they will be around to answer any questions in the back. But thank you guys again so much. You are so brilliant and well-dressed and just doing the thing out in the world. So give them a round of applause.